We'd like to thank all of you for coming out today. There's been a lot of work put in by a lot of people. I'd like to thank our township board members who are here today, Mike Keys, Tammy Patton, Dan Kress, Paul Gillingham, of course. Oh, I'm sorry, and Julie. We're here to break ground on Clinton Township's Inclusive Playground. The project was approved for study by the board in October of 2019. The Inclusive Playground Committee was formed to research and advise the Township Board, then took on the role of fundraising, which raised by themselves $137,000 plus through several events, as well as some private donors, which are going to be introduced in just a few minutes, as well as a grant that brought in $1 million, and we're going to talk about that in a minute also. ARC Services of Macomb partnered with the township, and the board committed to $300,000 from the general fund to see this project happen and to see the groundbreaking today, as well as approve the donation of this area of the Civic Center property for installation. After that, the committee met with subject matter experts, and the concepts you see around you, and please take a look at them because they're fabulous, were created by Game Time, the approved contractor. Now, why is this property here? At one time, this property was a piece of junk years ago. And there was going to be a road from where 18 Mile Road ends over by the water tower. It was going to come through what is now the Arboretum, through this area right here, behind the library, and through the subdivisions, and end up over on Cass Avenue. I was a trustee on the township board at the time, and I thought that was one of the dumbest things I'd ever heard. But I got voted down 6-1. And we were going to spend $1 million to partner with the county well before Mark Hackle, who, by the way, is here this morning, was in charge, because he never would have brought a project that to us. The residents agreed with me, and it took several months and several board meetings, but this property was then left vacant, and that $1 million was the first $1 million we put into our fund to have computers here in Clinton Township. I think most people would agree. What you see here today, this whole property, is much nicer than it would be a road, a 3-lane road, going nowhere that other roads take care of. So that's why this property is here, and we've continued, the Township Board has continued to make improvements as often as we possibly can. I'd like to thank and introduce 11th District State Senator Veronica Kleinfeld and 61st District State Representative Denise Mensker for their work in helping secure the grant. And ladies, would you have something to say, please?
So this grant, after what I call begging, pleading, looks of intimidation, and then bargaining, is actually possible because Veronica and I teamed together. Senator Kleinfeld and I teamed together. This shows you what a partnership, a true partnership in Lansing can do for our communities.
Oh, thank you. Just how close we came to not getting the money. After the budgets were ordered up, it was originally in one, but it was on the chopping block. I found out real late in the game when they were negotiating at a higher level than us that this was something that they may let go by the wayside. And I went to work on my end with my appropriations chair, and she went to work on her end with her appropriations chair, and really talked about the importance of it and the importance of it for community. And, you know, reminded them that some folks aren't invested in the way that others are. And everybody deserves to be invested in, and everybody deserves to have a quality of life. And so ultimately we were successful. But I have to say, our job, you know, was a few hours of, as she said, pleading and begging. It's nothing compared to the work that the folks that have been raising money for years put into this with the Inclusive Playground Committee. Their work is what made it happen, and I just want to acknowledge that and congratulate you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that check certainly was appreciated. Inclusive Playground Committee Chair Anne Marie Otoy, a parent of a special needs child who dreamed and advocated for this area today. We are so pleased to include it with our splash pad, which, by the way, Ken Pearl, who initiated that and brought it forward to the board, is here. We have a lot of people who bring things like that. We have Mike DeVault, the superintendent of the ISD, who continues to make improvements to his facility as well as all of Macomb County. And we thank you for that, Mike. So Anne Marie?
Thank you, Supervisor Cannon. May I invite the members of the Inclusive Playground Pals up to the podium with me? Okay. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. 5 years ago, with the support of the ARC of Macomb County, I wrote a letter to Clinton Township Treasurer Paul Gilliam and then Trustee Joey West with the idea of a playground, one that accommodates the needs of children and young adults of all abilities. A space where families gather, friends are made, and a community grows stronger with the help of one another. Today, I'm thrilled to be standing in the space of what was once a dream and will now become a reality. It's literally taken a village, rather a township, with the approval and support of the Clinton Township Board, the ARC supporting us as a fiduciary and community partner, and the countless donors and individual donors and sponsors who have supported us along the way. I believe Todd Stamper, CEO of Priority Waste, is in the audience. He was an early supporter. Hi, Todd. Thank you so much for joining us today. He was an early supporter of the playground. Before we began raising any significant amount of money, he believed in us and donated a check for $15,000 to the playground, getting us on our way, and I appreciate that. Along with the hard work of the members of the Inclusive Playground Pals, we began fundraising and spreading the vision of this at the beginning of the pandemic, with our very first fundraiser being a drive-in movie. Remember, those were the rage at the beginning of the pandemic? We went on to host our Battle of the Bands, Night at the Races, and our Battle of the Badges Chili Cook-Off, of which we will be having one more this fall, so stay tuned to our social media accounts. Through it all, we've leaned on family members, friends, and business associates in our community, and you did not disappoint us. We've raised over $135,000 for this project on our own. However, in 2023, early on, we realized that we wouldn't be able to do this and bring this project to life just on grassroots fundraising alone, and we would need to begin applying for grants. In June of 2023, Justin Mahalik and I met with Denise Menser, and we sat down and outlined the needs of the children in Clinton Township, the special needs population, of which Clinton Township's student population makes up 25% of Macomb County's special education population. She felt like she could help us, and along with the support of Senator Veronica Kleinfeld, as you just heard, they indeed did. A grant of $1 million, which was a game changer in fundraising for this playground. Thank you so much to both of you for your support. In addition, earlier this spring, the Clinton Township Board approved additional grant funding and closed the gap on our $1.4 million budget for this playground. Thank you so much, Supervisor Cannon and Clinton Township Board, for believing in us and this project and for meeting the needs of the children with differing abilities in Clinton Township. And here we are today, poised to make a difference in the life of hundreds of children, if not thousands, giving them the opportunity to spend carefree time outdoors, playing, making friends, outside of the four walls of school, home, doctor's appointments, and therapy appointments. This was the hope that I had when I first wrote this letter to Paul, but also the idea that building inclusive communities starts with each one of us and can be as simple as playing on a playground. I'm incredibly grateful to each and every person who contributed their time and their talents in this effort. Thank you.
Anne Marie said it right. Having the chili cook-offs and things like that kept it in the public eye, it kept it in the board's eye, it kept it in the state's eye, and I think that's what pushed it over the line. You weren't going to sell enough chili to pay for this thing altogether. There's no doubt about that. But you kept it in front of us, and that was very important. I'd like to introduce now ARC Services of Macomb Director Lisa Lapine to discuss ARC Services and the partnership they had with this playground.
Thank you. On behalf of the ARC of Macomb County, I would like to take credit for an amazing partnership and a wonderful, wonderful experience, but I really have to toss it back to Anne Marie and her group. if she hadn't had the dream, if she hadn't had the vision. So to Anne Marie and the group, all people with disabilities should be included in all activities throughout the community, and this is an opportunity for us to make that happen. Clearly, I'm a bit emotional myself. Thank you so much for the opportunity for the funding from the state. Thank you so much for your support for chili cook-offs and all the things that we do to make things better for the folks that we serve in Macomb County. On behalf of the ARC, we're pleased to be standing here, but it's Anne Marie and her crew.
Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Assistant Superintendent of Michigan Intermediate School District, Justin Mihalik, who is a member of the Inclusive Committee, and he wants to tell us of the features that you're going to see in this park. So.
Thank you, Bob. Before I start talking about the features of the park, I want a couple of the speakers before me mention community. Think of the communities involved. We have the Clinton Township community. We have members of the board, Bob, Paul, that have supported this. We have Anne Marie that called me 4 years ago. Hey, I have a project. You're in? Yeah, Anne Marie, I'm in. We have the Macomb County, the community of Macomb, and how they support each other and support individuals with special needs. We have the Macomb ISD community, and I didn't plan this, just to let you know, but we have a bus behind you, and they're dropping some of our students off to use the inclusive splash pad. So now when I start talking about the playground a little bit, we have renderings there you can see, but just kind of close your eyes and imagine. Behind me, you have a library. To my right, you have the historical buildings. Behind you, you have an inclusive splash pad. Now, what could be better than the beautiful day we have today, nice, cool, sun, playground right here. A playground for all people. Students with disabilities, individuals with disabilities, families, pictures, moms and dads, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, coming together here to play. And it's going to be a playground that is inclusive of everyone. Everyone has the opportunity to take part in the playground. Spend a day, go to the splash pad, be here at the park and play. Have a nice little picnic on the hill over there. Go to the library and read a book. Always have your kids read books. So now I'm going to talk a little bit just about some of the features of the playground. So, you think about it, how many playgrounds have you been to? And if you have a child that has special needs, is in a wheelchair, doesn't have upper body control, have they been able to participate? Many times the answer is no. Not anymore. October, it's going to be here. So think of a merry-go-round. They're going to have merry-go-rounds where a wheelchair can roll up there, be on that merry-go-round with their brothers and sisters seated on a bench or standing, and they can take part in the merry-go-round and spin. Mike and I and Mr. Hackle were at an event yesterday, and we saw a merry-go-round like that at a very small park. And you could just see the engagement of the kids, of individuals that had special needs, along with all their general education peers. And they were all taking part and enjoying it. But this is going to be a huge playground. Imagine that. We have special swings in this playground that will help provide upper body control for students so they could sit and swing instead of the traditional belt swings when we were kids at school. We also have sensory wave walls where students can go in there and it'll be tactile and all the different sensory types of things that they can do with it. We're going to have a quiet area. Some of our kids get overwhelmed with stimulus and the noise, so there'll be a nice little quiet area. Another really nice part of this playground is going to be this sensory wave arch where students in wheelchairs can wheel up. They can transfer themselves onto this piece of equipment, and I wish I had a bigger picture to show you, and they can climb on it. Our kids like to climb. They like to engage with people. So I could go on and on about the features of this playground, and we're going to have music. We have many of our kids that like music, and it's at the height for wheelchairs and other students that have other type of needs, and they can play the xylophone and everything else you've seen. So this is going to be a wonderful park. I can't thank Anne Marie enough. I cannot thank Clinton Township's board, Bob, the supervisor, Paul, and just Macomb County, the ISD, Chippewa Valley, the community, the school district here, Chippewa Valley, they've been instrumental in this. So again, this is going to be a wonderful park for all people of all abilities, and I just can't thank the committee and Anne Marie enough, and it's been an honor and a privilege to be part of this. Thank you, Bob.
I think the big part wasn't emphasized enough. This park is for all kids. I have a quick story. We have several swings in some of our parks for handicapped children. Well, one day we got a call from a mother who saw some kids using it who shouldn't have been using it because they weren't handicapped. Well, it turns out that the kids' parents who were handicapped wanted those kids to play on that swing because they wanted their child to see other people enjoying their swing. That's what this is all going to be about here. And with that, I would like to introduce, everybody needs somebody on the board to be our spokesperson, to be the point person. And Paul Gillingham did that for this project. Now, Paul does that for several projects. He does that for the largest blood drive in Michigan. You need a sponsor. And Paul, you've done a fabulous job. And thank you. It's your turn to speak, Paul.
Well, so to start off, I really need to talk about Anne Marie because of the letter that she sent is the thing that got this whole thing started. I also want to thank the committee members. They put in countless hours doing so many different projects, research, planning, creating a vision, designing this and what the features need to be, advocating, and fundraising. This was not a small endeavor, and they deserve so much credit for being there to make this thing happen. Everybody needs an impassioned leader. We had a bunch of them. Another person I want to talk about is Mary Bednar and Scott Chabot. Mary serves as our director of the Department of Public Services. And Scott Chabot is with AEW, the engineering firm, and he is our township engineer. And the two of them together, we brought an idea to them. They then had to say, how do I actually make this work? Where do we place it? Where can we fit it? What needs to happen? What are the design features? All of that working with the committee. They kept this going. And for that, they deserve an incredible amount of credit. So, Mary and Scott, thank you so much. At the time when Anne Marie sent this letter, she worked for ARC Services. And so when we needed to go and compete, not just for crowd-based funding and the community funding, we had to go and compete for grants and for foundations, and a lot of the requirements are that you have to be a 501c3. So the ARC Services, a great organization serving the community in Clinton Township, agreed to be our fiduciary. They brought in all the checks, they logged everything, they did all the accounting, they managed the bank account, tons of work, and they deserve an incredible amount of credit for being a part of this. Obviously, it wouldn't be possible without these legislators. These ladies came together to say, this is something we need to do for our community. It's something we need to do to make sure that we are serving everybody in our community. And so when I talk about Anne Marie and the letter that she sent, one of the things that I said to her is, okay, as this project spoke to me, I can form a committee. I can bring it to the Board of Trustees to earn their support and to form this. But it doesn't happen without great leaders. It doesn't happen without people with a passion for a project. And Anne Marie, I said to her, I'll bring it to the board, but you have to serve as the chair. So with a little bit of apprehension, she took that on and she did a tremendous job. So when I think about that, that is the example of how government is actually supposed to work, right? Residents and citizens petitioning their government for what they want to see in their community, for their families. That's the way it's supposed to work. That's the way it worked here. And we couldn't be more pleased as everyone's come together to make this happen. I also want to talk about what it means for the community. as Justin went through the features, I can't tell you the amount of people that had to sit in a room and say, well, what about this feature? Going through catalogs of all this equipment and saying, oh, here, this was left out. This is what we hear from the people. This is what we hear from our families. This is what we hear from the people that have experience in this area. And so people like Tara Cook in the back and so many others came up with those features, Paul Sasson as well. So it's the example of how government's supposed to work. It was mentioned earlier, but I want to underscore it. Clinton Township is home to 11% of the county's population, but we are home to 25% of the county's population of families that have a member with a disability in the family. And we're not sure why that is. It could be that the ISD is here. We have the two hospitals. We have a lot of providers in the area. We have two of the ISD schools, Glenn Peters and Neil Reed, but we have an affordable housing stock. But all of those things come together, and it says, it begged the question. It said, are we really serving everyone in our community? And so I think when the board learned that, to their credit, they stepped up. And the Board of Trustees supported this every step of the way. And so for that, we are eternally grateful, and we are very grateful to everyone who helped contribute, everyone who helped make this a reality. It was really somewhat disheartening at the start. We had to build momentum. It's physics, right? Easier to get an object, moving and redirect it once it's actually rolling, but the initial momentum at the start is very difficult. These people stuck with it. They made it happen. And to the credit of the Board of Trustees, we're going to have a phenomenal attraction, not just for our residents, but for residents all around Macomb County. Thank you so much.
And as those residents come from throughout the county, we hope they stop in our restaurants and gas stations and spend a lot of money here too. And we appreciate it. And Paul did a fantastic job of keeping everything together. It was discouraging. It was a lot of money. And every time they got to a certain point where they figured out it was going to cost $1 million, the next time it was $1.1 million. Then it was $1.2 million. Then it was $1.4 million, I think 4 now, right? We didn't want it to go any further. And that's why, and I knew the board would accept it, I brought forward the last $300,000 if we needed it, if we couldn't fund it somewhere else. And I wanted to be here when this opens as the supervisor, and now I will be, and I'm very happy about that. I'd like to, first of all, thank Paul, Justin, Lisa, Anne Marie, Denise, Veronica, and all those others. Joe Aragon, our state representative, you got very involved in a lot of the fundraisers also, so thank you. And Mark Hackle, who gets involved with everything positive in Macomb County, especially here in Clinton Township. But there's one other lady I'd like to mention. Marilyn, would you step forward, please, for a second with that special shovel? Her shovel has a baseball on the end. Now, Marilyn and I go back over 40 years because we coached Little League Baseball against each other. Well, after I became a trustee, she came forward and said she would like to raise money to put in a Challenger baseball field for those children who can't play baseball on a regular field. And she said she would raise all the money. And she did. And that field went in. And that field worked for how many years, Marilyn? A dozen or so. And those kids who started playing baseball at Reed Park grew up, became adults, and could no longer play on the smaller field. So she came back to the board and said she'd like to put in an adult field, a field of dreams. Nobody thought she could do it, but she sure did. Marilyn, thank you so much. There are special people in our community, like Anne Marie and Marilyn, who deserve this kind of credit. And she gets embarrassed every time I do this, and I'll catch it later, there's no doubt. But we are lucky to have people this passionate and this loyal to a population that needs extra help from time to time. So thank you. And Paul, we're ready for the shovels.